US Senator Bernie Sanders has beaten his Democratic rival, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, in the West Virginia presidential primary. Sanders is fighting an uphill battle against Clinton for the Democratic nomination, despite trailing her in the overall delegate count. On the Republican side, presumptive nominee Donald Trump took both West Virginia and Nebraska. Now that Donald Trump is the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, the big question is, can he win the election? Well, let's take a look at the numbers here. Now, these are results from 4 of the most recent nationwide polls. In each of them, Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton is ahead. She has an average lead of 7%. So what if Trump was against Sanders? Well, that's even worse for the Republican. Trump trails Sanders by an average of 14%, according to those same polls. Now, state by state, the polls show 24 states going red for the Republican Party. The Democrats would get 21 seats plus the District of Columbia. Now, in the grey states, neither candidate has been commanding the lead. Now, the race will probably come down to 3 key swing states: Florida, Ohio and Pennsylvania. No candidates ever won the presidential race without running at least 2 of them. Now, a poll released on Tuesday shows a tight race here. Trump and Clinton are in the virtual dead heat in Florida and also Pennsylvania. So he'd take a narrow victory in Ohio at this stage. On the other hand, Sanders is ahead of Trump in all 3 states. So let's get some analysis on this now. John Raines is Deputy Head of Political Risk at IHS and joins us live from London. Thanks so much for your time. Now, how accurate do you think are these polls? They suggest Hillary Clinton would win the general election, but how much weight can we really put to that?
Well, it's still early. So, I mean, most of the polls out there, I think if you look at the number of polls, she's won about 50 out of 55 different polls that have been taken in the last few months. So she's looking pretty decent. But, I mean, we're still early days. We still have 6 months before this election, so things could change. Certainly, it shows the position currently of the candidates. But, again, you get them on a debate stage. You have different international events occur. Things could change.
Well, as you say, it's early days. Is there any sort of indication at this stage which candidates you think will fare best in those swing states, those key states, Florida, Pennsylvania and Ohio?
Well, I mean, I think for those 3 states, it's going to be very interesting. Florida, you would think that Clinton would have a slight advantage there. Of course, Trump is running somewhat negative poll numbers as far as Latinos, and they represent a large portion of the populace that votes in that election. Ohio and Pennsylvania are up for grabs a bit because you have a lot of white working folks there that are attracted to a Trump candidacy. At this point, again, hard to say where the Mid-Atlantic and the Midwest is going to go. Trump should look pretty decent there. But again, when we're looking at these polls, we have to think, who are they asking these questions to, and what are the demographics of the people that are actually going to vote inside November?
And of course, there's plenty of time for a strategy shift in order to boost either side's numbers. And Donald Trump has already started to shift his campaign with a bit of a softer tone. How else will he and, of course, Hillary tweak their campaign strategy now that they are essentially locking up as the respective party nomination?
Well, I mean, I think Hillary still has a ways to go here. I mean, of course, you know, she had the big loss last night. It looks like she might have a couple of tough weeks ahead of her, both in Oregon and Kentucky. So she's going to have to still pivot a little bit more to the left before she can start going back towards the right. Donald Trump, a little bit different. We did see with taxes. We saw with the minimum wage. He's already beginning to position himself towards the general election. The question for Donald Trump is that his base is pretty firm in what they want as far as immigration and trade. I don't know how far he can tack back to the left there. It's going to be difficult for him going forward, but certainly that's what he's positioning himself to be able to do.
All right, as you say, it's early days. It's going to be an interesting 6 months ahead. Thank you so much for your time, John. John Raines there in London.